All right. Welcome to Wealth Unleashed webinar. My name is Oladipupo Clement, and the Wealth Unleashed webinar essentially has been designed to equip us to travel the journey to a wealthy place together. So if your dream is to create wealth, if your dream is to achieve financial freedom, then this is the right place to be. So I'll be sharing along this line. There are 3 phases that help you, that you must master if you must achieve financial freedom. I've shared it time and again, but I'm going to repeat it for the purpose of those who will just be hearing us for the first time. The first phase is personal transformation. The second phase is income generation, planning, and application. And then the third phase is asset accumulation, optimization, and retention. The personal transformation is where the real work is, because you see, if it must be, it's up to you. It's about who you are becoming, all right? You don't attract in life, you don't attract what you want, you attract who you are. So the investment of becoming the right version of yourself, a superior version of yourself, is one of the biggest and most important investments you would ever make, all right? So that's critical, and that talks about your belief system, talks about your behavioral patterns, talks about your habits, it talks about your mentality. Now, I often say to people, if everything you ever believed was a lie, imagine how your life would have turned out. I mean, imagine that you are 50 years today and everything you built your life on was an entire lie, right? Imagine how frustrating that can be. And it's never too late. The day you wake up is where your money starts. It's never too late to make adjustments. It's never too late to make the transition. And that's essentially what we'll be doing in this webinar over time. Okay, so I'm making this commitment because I recognize that there are people who may not be able to afford our courses, or afford our mastermind or master classes, or even afford our books. But it's important we put this out also just to help a number of people who may not be able to afford our courses and then our coaching programs. So let's shoot. So today, I'll be narrowing on the personal transformation bits, and I'll be speaking to you on the habits of wealthy people. Habits of wealthy people. I wrote this book 2 years ago, 2021, or this book was published 2021, and this is the version available in Nigeria, and then international. This is what is available if you live in America, or you are outside of Nigeria, outside of Africa. You can order this book on Amazon, but this one is available in Nigeria. And what I'm about to share is also contained in the book. There are several things that I'll be sharing on this platform that is drawn principally from the book. And that's pretty much what I'm going to be doing. It's also important for me to establish that I'm a person of faith. I draw my inspiration and my instruction from the Bible. And so if you are not a person of faith, or you are not a person who believes in the Bible, I really respect your view, but I have to let you know upfront that this is what is going to inform some of the things I'm going to be sharing. And so I'm beginning this particular session from the Bible, and it's Luke chapter 4 and verse 16. Luke chapter 4, verse 16, and it says, and he came to Nazareth, talking about Jesus, where he had been brought up, and as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up to read. And so he had a custom of going to the synagogue. That is about Jesus. Every successful person you would ever meet, you've ever heard about, people who have routine. They have daily routine. They have, they have daily habits, right? And if you alter your habits, you can alter your life, right? Good or bad. And I'm going to get into that in a moment. The other part, again, is Acts chapter 17 and verse 2. And it says, and Paul, as his manner was. And these are reputable Bible characters that made a mark. Jesus lived for 33 and a half years. And till date, his impact still transcends generations, over 2,000 years. and great people who made that much mark and are still making mark even long after they are left, lived based on habit. They have daily routine. They have specific patterns with which they built their lives. Talking about Paul wrote to third of the New Testament, and this Apostle Paul, we also understand that as his manner was, he visited, he observed Sabbath, he went to the synagogue, and all of that, and reasoned in scripture. So they had a habit of doing specific things. If you check anyone who has made any measure of, who has achieved any measure of result in life, you will find something consistent with them, and that is habit. That is habit. Habit is what is the distinguishing factor between the boys and the men. All right, and this is extremely important. Then again, we see in Daniel chapter 6, verse 10. Now, when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went to his house, and his windows being open in his chamber toward Jerusalem, he kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God, as he did aforetime. In other words, this has been the habit of Daniel to pray. He prayed 3 times a day. So Daniel had the habit of praying to his God. He had a sacred place. He had a dedicated space for praying, and he had a direction he faces each time he prayed. This was his custom. This was his habit, right? In fact, when his life was even on the line as a result of a decree made by Nebuchadnezzar during the exile of Israelites in Babylon, the decree was that anyone who prayed to any other god outside the God that has been set up by Nebuchadnezzar should be executed. But because habit has a way, you choose your habit, but your habit choose your destiny. But this habit had become part of him, right? It was uncontrollable. So even though there was a death decree, there was a decree that sentenced people to death, he still aligned with it. And again, this explains to you the power of habits, the power of habits. So Daniel was also a very remarkable person who even predicted many things that are happening today in our world many, many years ago. And so habits are extremely crucial. And so if you want to be successful, it's important to study successful people. If you want to be wealthy, it's important to study wealthy people. They have a unique daily habit. They have a unique pattern. There's a pattern to success. There's a pattern to habits, a pattern to success, pattern to wealth. And if you find out what other people are doing, I have a friend who often says that success is a matter of copy and paste. Just make sure you copy right? So that's exactly the way it works. There is nothing new under the sun. There's nothing you want to achieve that has never been achieved before. There's nothing you have achieved that nobody else has achieved before or even surpassed. So it's important to recognize that if you want to produce the other results other people have produced or even surpass them, you just don't need to reinvent the wheel. So find out what are the habits that they have developed. And one of the things I did, years ago was to find out what are the habits of successful people, recognizing that habits, patterns are the predictors of future. I can almost tell you what the next 5 to 10 years will look like if I study your pattern, right? If I study your pattern, if I research your pattern, and this is extremely important. This is extremely important. Most wealthy persons I know have daily rituals. They have daily routines. Most successful people, they have daily routines, right? So, because ultimately we are what we repeatedly do. We are what we repeatedly do. You choose your habits choose your destiny. You choose your habits, your habit chooses your destiny. We are what we repeatedly do. Now listen to me carefully. We are wired in such a way that it is not every step, every action that we take that is premeditated. Some have been ingrained. It has become part and parcel of us. Whatever it is that you do repeatedly has a way it forms a neural pathway in your brain. So you don't need to deploy conscious resources, to make decisions any further. So that's why when you are first learning, there's what is called the conscious, there's what is called unconscious incompetence. There's what is called conscious incompetence. Unconscious incompetence is when you don't even know you are ignorant, right? And you don't know that you don't know. So that is unconscious incompetence. But there's also a point where you recognize, so that's conscious incompetence. You are incompetent, but you recognize, oh, you don't know, right? But there's also a place where you have conscious competence. This is where you are still trying to gain mastery. You are still test running. That's at that point, you are very conscious. For those of you who learn to drive, those early days when I was learning to drive, I struggled. I was too conscious. I could not talk. I couldn't, do anything else while driving. I just focused on where I was going. I was too conscious, of where I was going. But, as time progressed, I realized that I began to gain mastery. So I moved from just conscious competence to unconscious competence. At that point, I now drive by reflex, because over a period of time, I've done something repeatedly to a point where I cannot make a mistake doing it any longer. And that's exactly where we need to get to. And that's one thing that habit does for us. So every time people talk to me, oh, what must I do? What must I, and all of those things, I just tell them, what are the habits you have right now? I was having a conversation with someone, 2 days ago. Well, yeah, 2 days ago. And the guy said, my brother, money no reach, no do. It's not enough. There's nothing you feel do. No matter how hard you work, it will never be enough. I just kept smiling. I kept smiling. I recognize that he is unwilling to change his habit and so cannot produce a superior result. And that's the way this thing works. All right. So habits are stronger than desire. I don't care. You've had it said and again. You've had it said before that if wishes were horses, beggars will ride. If wishes were horses, beggars will ride. So please take note of this. Your habits are stronger than desires. If you have a desire, but you do not develop habits that support the realization of those desires, then it will never come to fruition. One other thing I've also come to realize before I get into those habits of wealthy people, let me just give you this background because it's critical, it's essential, right? One of the things I've found out from my own life and the life of other people I've studied is the fact that bad habits are easy to form, but difficult to live with. Good habits, on the other hand, are easy to form. All right? Good habits, on the other hand, are difficult to form, but easy to live with. In other words, when you live your life based on bad habits, they are very easy. It's easy to pick up bad habits, but the consequences of bad habits does not only affect you, but also affects, Apologies for that. I want to recommend that please let's be very conscious. This program is being streamed, and we would appreciate that everybody observe all the basic protocol. Mute your device. If you have any question whatsoever, please, you can drop your comments. You can drop it in the comment section, please. All right. So if you also are struggling with Zoom, you can also go on YouTube. It's being streamed live on my YouTube channel at Oladipupo Clement. All right, so back to what I was saying. Bad habits are easy to form, but difficult to live with because the consequences are undesirable. Good habits, on the other hand, are difficult to form, but easy to live with. Why is it easy to live with? Because the consequence, the result, the outcome of good habits also are beneficial, not only to you, but to everyone around you. All right? So this is extremely important. And that's why whenever I want to help people plan their finances and plan their lives, plan their business, your habits impact on everything. It impacts on everything. Listen, if the way you have been living has not brought you to your desirable destination, then it tells you something that there's something faulty about your current daily habits, right? There's something fundamentally wrong with your daily routine. Every time I find myself in a situation or circumstances I'm not comfortable with, I always go back to my patterns. I look at the habits, I look at my routine. I make those adjustments, all right? I quickly turn things around and adjust things so rapidly. And that's pretty much one of the key reasons why I'm taking this session right now, because it's one of the fundamentals that will lead to your own personal transformation. And this part is the invisible part of your life, right? When you start developing those positive habits, anyone that you know that has gotten to the zenith of their career, zenith of their business, zenith of life, you will realize that they were at one point in their life in oblivion. Nobody knew them. Nobody knew they existed, right? But while nobody is seeing you, that's when you begin to develop this kind of habits. And ultimately, when you come to alignment, that's what will ultimately sustain you. That's why everything you see, you plant a seed, is the seed first grows downward, right? It grows roots downward before they begin to grow fruit upward. So before you start growing upward, it's going to grow downward, because ultimately that's what will stabilize you. That's what will guarantee your stability. And this is so important. Unfortunately, everybody wants to grow fruit, but they are unwilling to pay the price of growing roots downward. That's what habits is about. That's what habits is about. Okay? So this is very, very, very important. Many of our dreams have not come to fruition simply because we have not yet adopted daily habits that support the realization of such dreams, right? The way this thing works is such that when you set a goal, you ask yourself, what habits, what behavior will support the realization of this dream? And then start operating by that habit, start operating by that pattern. And that's what will help you achieve those goals. If you continue doing what you've been doing before, you don't expect a different result. It is been said that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again and expect a different result. So my dear friends, my admonition and my recommendation, and the reason I'm bringing this out, is that many of us are living a life that does not support the dreams that we have. It's time to make the critical adjustment. It will be inconvenient, it will be uncomfortable, but every discomfort most times often leads to the measure of comfort that you desire. All right? So this is the way it works. After you set goals, you then choose the habits that support those goals and not the other way around. So goals don't fulfill themselves. You need new habits to fulfill and achieve new goals. All right? The secret of great and successful people, like I've said before, is in their daily routine. Don't envy anybody. Find out what it is they do daily. Most of my mentors, my coaches, it's one of the key things I try to find out. So can you give me a sense of your daily habits, right? I just did every Saturday by 9 p.m. I push content on my YouTube channel, right? I just did a video. I just shot the video not too long ago, asked my daughter to edit it, right? But before I did that, I have a daily routine of prayer walk. Sometimes I stay in a closet. Sometimes I do a prayer walk and combining spiritual exercise with physical exercise. That's a daily routine that not many people have developed. Now, you want the kind of result that some people have, but you don't want to pay the price. You don't want to develop the habits that they have developed. So it's important to recognize. So if you see any measure of result anyone has produced, they have specific routine they have developed. So to change your life, just change your habits. To change your finances, you want to create wealth, just change your habits. Change your habits. The key to success in any endeavor is not in what you do in a day. I will repeat that again. The secret to success in any and every endeavor is not in what you do in a day. It is what you do daily. The secret is in what you do daily, right? The secret is in what you do daily, not in what you do in a day. It's what you do daily. This is very, very, very important. So if habits are this important, if habits are this much value, what are those habits that I must develop to support my journey to the wealthy place? What habits must I develop that will help and support my journey, the realization of my financial freedom dreams? That's what I want to share with you today. And if you do not have my book, I recommend you get it. If you're in Nigeria or Africa, you can play. If you're in Nigeria in particular, you can place order for this book and it can be delivered to you for free. Just call the number 0708 7970441. And then if you are anywhere outside Nigeria, you can actually order for this on Amazon. So I said that because it's almost impossible to share and to be able to conclude the syllabus on this call. Okay. So what are those habits that will support the realization of your dreams, particularly as it relates to your finances, as it relates to your wealth? as it relates to wealth creation. Number one is that wealthy people, they pray, meditate, and visualize daily. They pray, they meditate, and they visualize daily. And I'm going to pick that from somewhere. Now, listen to this carefully. Listen to this carefully. One of the things I've come to realize that everything that we see that is visible today was first a thought, an idea in somebody's mind, was first an imagination in somebody's mind, right? Everything is created twice. It's first within, then without. So one of the habits of wealthy people is that they don't joke with the thoughts that preoccupy their mind. And so you want to take hold of your thoughts. You want to be master of your thoughts. You want to be master of your imagination. This is critical. This is too important to ignore, right? All successful people, they think, in fact, they have come to a point, they've come to points where they think success by default because that's been their practice over time. You'll know what I've shared as a foundation for this particular lecture, right? Is that you choose your habit, your habit chooses your destiny, right? But you practice it to a point where it now becomes your second nature. And that's exactly what, ensures that miracles, favor, opportunities gravitates in your direction. The quality of thoughts that preoccupies your mind is what determines what you attract into your life. There's what we call the law of attraction. That law simply states that everything that happens around us is a reflection of what's happening inside us. Let me tell you something. This is the science behind every miracle. I can tell you again and again, if there's anything that is happening around you that is unfavorable, you can reorder it, you can change it, right? Sometimes the things that happen around us sometimes becloud our sense of judgment, beclouds our emotion, so much so that we start thinking about it, we dream it, that's what we think before we go to bed. When we wake up, that's the first thing that occurs to us, and we don't realize that that's how we also architect the outcomes of our lives, right? So if the outcomes of our lives are undesirable, unfavorable, you can reorganize it, you can architect what you desire. And one of those things that has become habits, for wealthy people, and that you also can develop, right, is pray, meditate, and visualize. Let me quickly touch on this aspect of pray. You see, your desires are a form of thoughts. They are intangible. Thoughts are words. Words are thoughts. Your thoughts create words. Your words create thoughts. Your thoughts create words. Your words reinforces thoughts in your mind. All right? So every time we take time to pray, we are basically expressing our thoughts. So when you pray, you're expressing your thoughts, you're expressing your desires that are intangible. All right? And those thoughts, those discussions, those expressions is what is reinforcing the thoughts we ultimately meditate upon, right? And it forms a picture in our mind. This is so powerful. So as individuals, you want to create wealth. What is your definition of wealth? What's wealth to you? What's the picture of wealth that you hold consistently in your mind, right? When will you consider yourself to be financially free? What figure will put you in a place where you think now you are financially free? All right. This is very, very, very powerful. And I will read a scripture to you here. Like I said, I'm going to make sure that some of the sessions I'm taking, even though in my books, you won't find Bible except a chapter in the book. Only a chapter in the book captures scripture, but there's practically nothing I've shared in this book that is not drawn from the Bible. And it's to let you know that Bible is the governing constitution for daily lives, for daily living. All right. So let's quickly look at this. Jesus was the one even speaking here, and it has to do with in Luke chapter 18, verse 1, it says, "And he spake a parable unto them to this end, that men ought always to pray and not to faint." So please, let nobody deceive anybody. Prayer is a critical essential in the journey to financial freedom, because the words you verbalize is creating your world, right? The words you are articulating is creating the world that you live in, right? You may not be able to change the world in Nigeria. You may not be able to change the economy of Africa, but you can change your own life economy. You can change your own personal economy. You can change your family economy, right? That is your own world. But the words you speak, they carry life. They have ability to shape things, all right? And that's why prayer is very, very important. It says always to pray. Always to pray. Men always ought to pray and not to faint. So never grow weary in praying. Never grow tired of praying and declaring and articulating the things you want to see in your life. The more you do that, the more you are reinforcing thought. I don't know any of you who at one point or another, you probably are driving, maybe you're on the 3rd Mainland Bridge, or you are, you are driving and then something just crosses your mind that imagine that this car just enters the lagoon. Has it ever occurred to you before? If it has ever happened to you, please, sir, can you just indicate that it has happened to you? So occasionally we get negative thoughts, we get, different thoughts that passes through our mind that you were not meditated on before. Now it is with your words, it is your prayer that you neutralize them, right? It is with your words. And if you do nothing about those kind of negative thoughts, it has a way it has a way it grows and gives birth to other things that are undesirable. And that's why you must arrest any negative thoughts in the place of prayer. And of course, you take time to meditate. You see, from my experience, and this is the way I understand it, right? Life is in phases, men are in sizes. And based on my level of experience, based on my years of living, based on my studies and research, I've come to realize when we pray, we are speaking to the Creator. When we meditate, God is speaking back to us, right? Thoughts and ideas are dropped in our hearts, all right? That's how God also responds to prayers, all right? And that's why it's very important. So visualize daily. This is what thing that most wealthy people do. They have vision boards that shows picture of the preferred future. So if there's anybody who is already controlling the dimension of resources, dimension of results that you want to achieve, it's good to have their picture where you see it regularly and put the figure there, right? The more you see it, the more it burns into your heart, all right? And then your subconscious mind will take it up and then help you to process it, such that you start recognizing, you start operating the same level of wisdom, you start operating the same level of mind and insight that those people also control. I have not seen anyone. You see, I remember listening to someone recently, and the guy was saying, he said many of the things that he has accomplished, he never dreamt them, he never thought them. But that's not true, right? That's not completely true, right? He never imagined this much would happen, right? But the truth is that everything that ever happened in our lives, right, came through a thought. You and I are product of thought. You and I were product of words, right? A man met a woman, proposed to her, said, "Will you marry me?" And the woman agreed. And then they both married, consummated the marriage. Then you came about. That is word. That is thoughts. To imagine that, you never thought you would not have a child. To never think that, to even say that you never thought you would give birth to a child, right? Means that you would never give it. You were not conscious of the process. You have become the thing we're talking about. All right. So this is very, very important. This is very, very important. Number 2, habits that we want to quickly look at. All right. They save and invest first and spend whatever is left every time they make income. Now, this is one of the critical habits of wealthy people. They save and invest first and spend whatever is left every time they make an income. So every time an income is generated, the first thing wealthy people do is they save and invest first. They prioritize savings and investment first and spend whatever is left. Now, it was a wise man who said, wealthy people, rich people save and invest first and spend whatever is left. He said, on the other hand, poor people spend first and save and invest whatever is left. And I added by saying, if there is anything at all, because more often than not, there is nothing left, right? There's nothing left. Now, the reason why prioritizing savings and investments every time you make an income is so important is because whether you save or not, the money will still not go around. The money will still not be enough, right? And so when you treat your savings as an expense, you treat your savings and investment as an expense for your future to cater for the expenses of the future, you are advertently, protecting your future. All right. This is very, very important. Another very powerful scripture that corroborates this is that there is treasure to be desired and oil in the dwelling of the wise. He said, but a foolish man spendeth it up. This is Proverbs 21 and verse 20. There is treasure to be desired and the oil in the dwelling of the wise. He said, but a foolish man spendeth it up. Right? So it is folly, right, to spend first and invest or save whatever is left. It is foolishness, right? So it is wisdom when you invest first, when you save first before spending, right? One of the practices in my life is the moment income comes, I set aside income for, I set aside money for covenant obligation, my tithing. I don't joke with that. That's the first thing, right? That's what provides security for everything else I have on earth. So I set that one aside. And 10% goes. It's not a debate. If you are still debating that, that's your own cup of tea. I don't need any teacher. I don't need anybody to confuse me. I already know it's working for me. I know it's protecting me. I know it's doing a lot that I cannot even explain, right? Once that one is taken care of, the next thing is savings, right? We need to save between 10 and 20% minimum. That is even on a low key. It all depends on the number of other structures that you have in place. For those of us who have businesses and all of those things, it also depends on the number of factors, right? It also depends on the income that's available to you per time, all right? But no matter what, when it comes to the issue of savings, you are saving not necessarily because that is it's more about the discipline it inculcates in us. And then ultimately, we don't save as an investment. Savings is not an investment strategy, all right? You don't save as an investment. Please, mind you, savings is not an investment. But if you save as an investment, that is a problem. You save for investment, right? So you save and accumulate a certain volume of funds to be able to invest, all right? So that's what is most strategic. So, but this habit is something you have to develop. If you are not in the habit of savings or saving money, or all you do is spending money, then you are running a huge risk. There are three things you can do with money. Number one, you can waste money. And this is what a lot of foolish people do. This is what a lot of foolish people do. They waste money, they waste resources, they waste opportunity, they waste time, right? Number two, you can spend money. This is what average regular people do with money, all right? Number three is invest money. And this is what the wise do. They invest money, they save money, all right? This is so important. This is extremely, extremely important. You want to develop the habit of wealthy people. One of those habits is to save and invest first, then spend whatever is left, and not the other way around. If you do the other way, then there's no way you'll be financially stable. There's no way you achieve financial freedom. There's no way you can create wealth that way. Okay? Number three, wealthy people take calculated risks. They often run towards what other poor people run away from. And this is the irony of life, right? One of the things I share with some of my mentees and sometimes some of my friends and students is that, see, if you want to make a decision, sometimes it is important to find out what are the majority of people doing. If you do the direct opposite, you are most likely to be correct. I can tell you that. Listen, when it comes to the issue of creating wealth, when it comes to the subject of wealth creation, the majority don't carry the vote. That's why not many people are wealthy. If you do what your friends have been doing, then you are not likely to be wealthy. All right? So this is extremely important. And one of the key things that most wealthy people have as a habit is they take calculated risk. What makes a risk a calculated one is the fact that you are taking an informed decision. It's a risk that is based on what is the worst case scenario. The worst thing that can happen is that if this doesn't go this way, I still have this to take. I remember we're acquiring a particular parcel of expanse of land somewhere in Abuja years back. And I asked myself, okay, we're setting up this and that. If this does not work, what is the worst thing that can happen? I said, we still have our property. Today, that same property we bought for maybe 120 or 130 million, right? Today is worth over 1.5 billion. Today is worth well over 1.5 billion. I'm even trying to underestimate it. It's worth well over 1.5 billion, right? All right, so this is very important. So, but it was an informed risk. It was a calculated risk. What makes a risk? Because listen to me carefully. Whether you take a risk or not, whether you are aware you are taking a risk or not, the life you are living right now is a risk. That you go out and come in is a risk you took. But a lot of people are not taking conscious risk. All right, they are not consciously taking risk. And what makes the risk a calculated one is that you carry out due diligence, you get sufficient, adequate information, you evaluate your risk tolerance, you evaluate your risk appetite, and then you match it with the attendant risk associated with the choice or class of investment instrument that you are embracing. All right, this is extremely important. So it's always important to evaluate. Right, we don't all have the same risk profile. All right, depending on your personality and a host of other things. We also have not gone through the same thing. So the way, and then we are also not in the same phase. For a retiree, their risk profile or risk tolerance is not the same as somebody who is much younger. There are many things that you can afford to test when you are still under tax. You can risk some things without even doing proper investigation. But when you are already close to 60 or you are over 60, there are the risks that you will take with caution. All right. And this is very, very, very important. I was still discussing with a client, during the week, and the gentleman was telling me he will soon be 60. Right. And so he has to be careful with how he runs his life. Right. It's not his own agenda now is about legacy. He's not doing this for what to eat. He said he has crossed that level. But the goal now is legacy. And so he wants to be very strategic and he wants to measure the risk that's appropriate for him. The reason a number of people have developed high blood pressure and developed stroke, at some point in their life, because they took a risk that is beyond their risk profile. So it's very, very important. As an investment coach, as a wealth coach myself, this is one thing I like to do all of the time. Before somebody says, I want to buy this, I want to do. Hold on first. Let us evaluate your risk profile. Let us evaluate what exactly is your objective and match your objective with your risk profile along with the options that are available. All right. So they say crypto. You to put your head, you shook head. You now carry your entire life savings, sold houses, sold everything, and put your money there because they said the thing doubles and you can get 1,000 times the money. You don't evaluate. That's not a calculated risk, right? But it's also important to recognize that there's no way you can ever amount to any measure of wealth in this life without taking some measure of risk. And I will tell you categorically also, anybody who has created any measure of wealth has lost money or at one point or another. There's none of us who have created any money that has not lost money. So you only hear of the money we made. We don't hear of the monies we lost, right? And that's exactly why you have to take calculated risk. So the higher your level of wisdom, the lower the level of risk that you take. Again, the more time you have at your disposal, the lower the risk you'll be taking. Okay, so if you have a long time you are using, so if you say, okay, I'm putting resources in this direction, I'm taking a 10-year look, a 10-year first, you are using 10 years to enter into this direction, there is a different ballgame. You'll be minimizing your risk also by taking advantage of time. All right. So time is a veritable resource when it comes to investing and trying to create wealth. All right. But if you go in there, you want to produce you are more susceptible to a crash. And that's why it's important to take calculated risk. If you can still hear me loud and clear, please type 10. Type 10 if you can still hear me loud and clear. If you can still hear me loud and clear, type 10. Type 10. One of the challenges of hosting a program like this is that you just want to keep talking and you forget that there are people waiting. All right. So what scripture will guide you in this one? Joshua chapter 1, verse 5 to 7. Joshua chapter 1, verse 5 to 7. One thing that makes the wealthy is the fact that they are not afraid to fail. The quicker you fail, the quicker you can succeed. All right. The quicker you fail, the quicker you can succeed. Now listen to what God told Joshua. He said, "There shall not any man be able to stand before thee all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with thee." Now imagine such a promise from the Creator, from God himself. He said, "I will not fail thee, nor forsake thee." Imagine. He said, "Be strong and of a good courage." So even though you have presence of God with you, you still need to take courageous steps. You need to make courageous moves, right? He said, "For unto these people shalt thou divide for an inheritance the land which I swear unto their fathers to give them. Only be thou strong and very courageous. The requirement he gave him was just be strong and very courageous, because you will witness issues, circumstances you never preempted. You will witness, you see, I tell people I believe a lot in planning. I believe a lot in long-term planning, planning your life and planning your career, planning your business, planning your family, planning everything. I believe a lot in planning. But from experience, I can tell you, life will cost you more than you planned. And that's where the courage comes in. That's when taking risk comes in. All right. That's where taking risk comes in. All right. He said, only be thou strong and very courageous. He said, that thou mayest observe to do according to all the law which Moses my servant commanded thee. Turn not from it to the right and from the right hand or to the left, that thou mayest prosper whithersoever thou goest. So this is extremely important. So you need courage. You need to take calculated risk. Okay. So because that's the habit that wealthy people have developed. I mean, it's impossible for me to just settle for less. It's impossible for me to just settle for, when you tell me this is guaranteed. I don't subscribe to, I prefer the one that I control, right? I prefer the one that will take the risk together. Let's share the profit and share the loss together. All right. And occasionally when I have conversations with similar-minded people, I remember I was still sharing an idea with a mentor of mine, and he was saying, why would I be collecting guarantee? Let's share the risk together. We'll enter the thing together. Like that. That's the way to think, right? You've done your analysis, and then part of calculated risk is you don't dip your 2 feet into the ocean. You take one to see how shallow or deep it is, all right, before you take the next step. So you don't pump in everything. You take one step at a time and see, evaluate, how is it performing? How is it doing? Okay, so when you see, okay, I think at this level, we can move on. At this point, we can take another step. So that's the way it works, all right? Number four, they are committed to value creation always. Wealthy people are committed to value creation always. Listen. One of the things that distinguishes the wealthy from the poor is the fact that the poor is thinking of who will serve them. The poor is thinking of who will give them. The wealthy are always thinking, what are the problems in the world? What portion of those problems can I solve? So they devise solutions, they create systems that helps to address the problems of the world. You see, money is a reward for solving problems. Money is a reward for adding value to people's lives. So the more problems you are solving for people, the more value you are adding to the world, the more needs you are meeting in the world, the more questions you are answering in the world, the more asset of the person you are becoming to the world, the more money flows to you. So they are constantly committed to adding value. This is one of the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing. This is one of the reasons why I wrote books. I've written 13 books. I've published 7 of them, right? I have 7 of them already published. The reason I'm doing what I'm doing is simply because I just want to keep adding value. So it's the same thing you have to position yourself in. You have to start thinking in that manner. Another very important thing is, unlike poor people who are constantly thinking of how to exchange their time for money, the wealthy are thinking of what can they create that will continue to solve problems, but it is not, that is the only thing they are exchanging for money. So they create it once, they deploy resources once, but those things keep producing revenue. So most wealthy people are committed to value creation always. The question you should be asking yourself, what value am I creating in my world? What value am I creating in my world? The scripture you need to take note of is Matthew 20, verse 25 to 28. It's a scripture that spoke about, if you want to be, those who want to be great among you must be the servants. And, he said, Jesus called them unto himself and said, you know that the princes of the Gentile exercise dominion over them. He said, and they are great, exercise dominion over them, and they that are great exercise authority upon them. He said, but it shall not be so among you. But whosoever will be great among you, let him be your minister. Your minister there talks about being your servant, being the value creator, right? The richest people in the world today are the greatest and the biggest when it comes to value creation. So start to think in terms of, what am I going to donate to my world? What am I going to contribute? If you're not pleased with what you are drawing from life, then begin to pay attention to what are you contributing. If you're not comfortable with what you are getting out of life, if you are not happy with what life is giving to you, ask yourself, what are you giving to life? And this is the way to think. This is how wealthy people think. All right. Every time I need a specific amount of money, I need to execute a project or anything, I'm always thinking in my mind, okay, what am I going to give in exchange for that money? That is the way you should be thinking, right? Rather than thinking, who should I call? Who will give me the money? No, nobody, just no free lunch anywhere. So you must start thinking of what am I going to give in exchange for the money that you desire. All right. And for today, number 5. So I will wrap up with number 5 because our time is fast so that we can take a bit of questions. Learning and practicing. Learning and practicing. Learning and practicing. Not just learning alone, but practicing what you have learned, right? Because it's not what you know that counts, but what you do with what you know. All right. Execution is the mother of strategy. So no matter how lofty your insights are, no matter how incredible your insights, your knowledge are, if you are not implementing them, it won't produce any results. All right. So if you gather, you take all the notes in this world and you are not implementing, then you will be broke. You will struggle financially. All right. So reading, researching, these are all lifelong habits you must develop. And this is one thing that characterizes most wealthy people. All right. They do a lot of research. They can sit down and learn from just about anybody. They learn from poor, they learn from the rich, they learn from younger people, they learn from colleagues, they learn from older people. They are forever learning. They are never arrogant. Listen to me carefully. In order to be filled, you have to remain empty. All right. In order to be to have your appetite satisfied, you have to stay hungry. And this is a habit that you must have. You must never come to that point where you feel, what do they know? What does he want to teach me? What does he know? No. Don't develop that kind of attitude. I read a book on Walmart years ago, the Walmart way. It was the former CEO of Walmart. Walmart is one of the biggest, largest employers of the world, in the world. As of the time I read that book, they already had over 100,000 employees in their employment, right? And as of today, it's still one of the most valuable companies on planet Earth. You can Google it, all right? But it was said that the founder of that company, by the name Sam Walton took the pain, from time to time, it goes to smaller retail stores, right? And then go see how they are operating. And then on one of those occasions, he saw a particular wooden shelf and said to the team that went with him that, see, we need to implement this across all of our retail stores. This is exactly what we need in all our retail stores. So even at that point, when their business was already doing turnover in billions of dollars annually, he was still learning from the smaller retail store and seeing what they were doing right and they could implement in their businesses. That's exactly how to live. Like, that's how the wealthy keeps learning. All right. I've never seen some of my mentors. Sometimes when I'm sharing, they still sit down and be learning. And I'm thinking to myself, I learned something. I learned a lot from you people. Why are you still sitting down? They are never tired of learning. So the day you stop learning, you start dying. So please, you want to create wealth, you want to advance, this is a habit you must develop. I have given books to people, and I've had people say, "A book will go shop." What you don't know may be killing you. All right. So you have to be a lifelong learner. You have to be a dedicated and committed learner. Right? There must no year must pass by without you enrolling for a course, enrolling for a program, buying books, reading books, every month. I mean, this is a commitment you have to make, right? Your education should not end in university. In fact, anything you learned in university expired before you even graduated, right? And so you need updated version. And like my mentor would always say, if you are not in the know, you will not be in the flow. If you're outdated, if you're not updated, you'll be outdated, right? So if you really, really, really want to remain relevant in this world, you need to keep, updating yourself in this consistent and rapidly changing world that we live in. And so let me read a very powerful scripture here. And it says, Daniel chapter 9, verse 2. It says, in the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood by books the number of the years whereof the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah the prophet, that he would accomplish 70 years in the desolations of Jerusalem. In other words, the only way Daniel came to discover that they had already been spending over time, the period they were supposed to be in exile, was through books, was through research, right? There are many things that have been written, before we were born that you can, and that's the beauty of books, right? I bought a book last month, and the author of that book is no more. The book was written in 1926, but I'm reading the book in 2023. In 3 years, it will be 100 years that the book had been written. So there are things that have been written aforetime that can help program and reconstruct your own destiny. But if you don't ever find those kind of materials, you'll be wondering. The most important, the only thing I've ordered on Amazon has been books, books, books. I'm listening to a message, somebody mentions a book, I order for it. I'm reading something and then they make a reference to a book, I order for the book immediately. I don't waste time. All right. Why? Books are powerful. Books are powerful. All right. So learning and practice is one of the habits. If you go on Netflix, there's a documentary on Bill Gates, Inside the Brain of Bill Gates. That's the title of the documentary, and it was talking about one of the sessions that Bill Gates, the interview that Bill Gates granted. He said there are times when it goes on 6 weeks. Some weeks he will just go far away from, and he has a closet somewhere far away from town that will just go sit down there. And all he goes with is books. He's a nerd. And so, but that's the culture of most wealthy people. They also surround themselves with people who also invest in research, who invest in knowledge. All right. So this is extremely, extremely important. You want to create wealth, study wealthy people, develop their habits, and then you will also achieve that measure of wealth. I hope this has been helpful. Let's take questions right away. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much, everyone.